Hi everyone, Dr. Tanya here. Um, I want to talk to you today about developing coping skills in the context of addictive behavior. If you're interested in changing your behavior, uh, stopping addiction or cutting down on addictive behavior, you're going to need to develop coping skills. There's a big joke in Alcoholics Anonymous and AA meetings where a person says, drinking is not my problem, drinking is my solution. And so I say that to you, that drinking is a solution. And so recovery or treatment of addiction has to be about developing solutions. And I call these solutions coping skills. So, what are coping skills? Uh, Coping skills are cover many areas, and there's a broad topic, and everybody has their own issues of things that they can't cope with. And so some people are really excellent at work. Like when they're at work, they're a star and they can work and they're powerhouse and they make a lot of money and they're great. But then when they go home, their relationship is a disaster, or their things with their kids are a disaster, or um, they have a great marriage and a great kids, but they're can't find a job. Um, there are many areas in life that are affected through drinking, and so drinking becomes this problem in and of its own right. So it's sort of the solution that people use to cope with life, but then it gets these old new subset of problems which interferes with work and relationships and could be legal issues and health and everything else that comes from drinking too much. So coping skills similarly are many varied in these different categories that need to be these different life problems. And so it sort of becomes this life skill issue of how are you handling your life and how are you coping with your life? Do you have a problem in your relationships? Are you lonely? Do you have friends? Do you have people that you can trust in your life? Do you have people that you can count on? Do you need help with that? Are you not reaching your life goals? Are you in a job that's unsatisfying, that's not meeting your needs, that's not making enough money, and you feel stuck, like you can't get further in your career? Is that some area that's suffering for you that you deal with by drinking to cope with it? Are you wanting a relationship or wanting kids and that you can't seem to hold on to a relationship and your relationships keep failing? This is another issue that can be very painful for people that they cope with through drinking. Um, there are so many other issues that people have when people that suffer from mental health issues are depressed or they're anxious and they self-medicate through drinking. So they have some sort of internal chemical imbalance going on that's causing a lot of anxiety or causing a lot of depression or other symptoms, and they deal with it by drinking. They become their own doctor and they prescribe themselves alcohol. So all these issues are problems in life that people have and coping skills that they've developed that are maladaptive. And so I challenge you that you want to, after identifying your underlying needs that you have, is start looking at your coping skills and areas where your coping skills are lacking and where you're going to need professional help to help you develop more coping skills. And there's many professionals out there, and there's a lot of free resources out there as well, support groups and such, where people can find coping skills. I'll use AA as an example. AA doesn't work for everybody, but for some people it's helpful. And one of the things that AA immediately does that's really great is it's very social. It's immediately this group, this place where people can go. There's a piece of it that reduces shame, where people can go there and say, I'm an alcoholic, and they are in a room full of people who are alcoholics, and it reduces the shame. It's suddenly like not the secret anymore. Like, oh, there's other people like me that are coping really well in life or doing well, who have the same issues that I have, and I'm not so bad. I'm not so out there of the norm. I'm part of a group of other people that have the same issue. The other piece is that AA meetings are everywhere. So there's sort of, when a person feels lonely, it's a great way to go and get connected. It's a great place to listen to where other people are developing their own coping skills, or they're struggling and trying to solve their own problems. And it's sort of a place to get inspiration. There's a lot of things that happen at AA meetings. They do sponsorship where people can get sort of a mentor that's assigned to them to help them to quit their drinking. There's also just coping skills around, the sponsor may say, hey, you're isolating too much, and part of your problem with your drinking is that you're not reaching out enough. I want you to make 3 phone calls a day to people who are in recovery so you can get connected, so you're not sitting alone with yourself, because isolating tends to be this big maladaptive coping skill that people have in life, where they keep all their problems to themselves. They don't reach out. They don't tell people what's going on. And then they rely on alcohol to sort of soothe themselves. So AA can be this helpful tool of recovery, where a person gets a mentor that sort of gives them assignments, and that they can start developing these new coping skills. There are many other treatment programs out there. There's Smart Recovery, there's Refuge Recovery, there's groups out there that deal specifically with addiction. There's a lot of support groups through other agencies, through social programs or community groups, where people can join groups where people are trying to better themselves. There's religious organizations. There's, places where people can go gather for, if you're Buddhist, or if you're Muslim, or if you're Jewish, you can go to these community centers of worship and get together with people who follow a similar religious background as you, or path. And those are often also can be a really great tool for people to develop coping skills. Again, these are not for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody, but these are sort of some examples of some ways to reach out in the community to develop coping skills and learn how to, some new life skills that maybe you haven't developed up until now. And so I think one of the biggest problems with people with drinking is this sense of shame and this sense of isolation, and people feeling too vulnerable and too ashamed to ask for help, and too embarrassed to admit what's really going on. And so some of the coping skills to deal with that are going to be about trying to reduce that shame and trying to find other people that have the similar problem, so it doesn't feel like you're alone. And also, a big piece of that can be going to professionals, because sometimes that shame piece around the drinking can be connected to trauma and have to do with some um, background history that you may have not never dealt with, and that it's coming up in the form of drinking as a solution to deal with this suppressed trauma. So this again is something where you really want to seek out a professional. You want to seek out a therapist that can help you to identify some of the underlying trauma and feelings that have happened to you, and to develop new coping skills to process that piece of history of yourself. So coping skills is a broad topic that it has to be individualized, that you're going to have to identify your underlying needs, and then also start identifying coping skills that work for you, because there's many out there, but many may not work for you, and it has to be very individualized. So I encourage you to start taking assessment of yourself and your life. All right, see you on the next video.